Grow old along with me, the best is yet to be, the last of life for which the first was made. And those of you that have read the book or know me and have talked know that the beginning wasn't quite the best for me. My life, 3 weeks after I retired, I was an absolute basket case. And that's what I want to start off with, is reading that introduction. So I'm going to read that. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I found the hope that I lost in the beginning and a few of the blog things there. And then I'll have some time if y'all want to ask questions and things. Okay, this is called The Apartment Floor. You're no good. You're no good. My words, mixed with some embarrassing tears, sounded childish and vaguely familiar. They brought memories of what psychologist Philip Zimbardo called past negatives, traumatic experiences from years gone by, forgotten during good times, but all too real when times turn hard. It was a sunny Saturday morning in June 2016, just a few weeks after I taught my last English class at Emerald College. I was lying face down on the floor of a small efficiency apartment supplied by the generosity of a friend. We had sold our home of 36 years and were midway in the process of building a new one. And I was in tears, literally. Not one given to such outbursts. I also was ashamed. Not because of the tears, but because of what I thought one of the stupidest decisions of my 67 years. And I've had several of those. But I'm getting ahead of myself, all right? I had just gotten off the phone with a friend who told me why my usually upbeat loan officer had appeared so worried. He's afraid the committee won't approve your loan, were her words. What? 6 months before, I had sailed through the pre-approval. And now I had more assets than them. 401k, monthly teacher retirement payments, equity in some rental properties, everything but, she finished my thought for me, you no longer have your professor's paycheck. It was my first lesson in retirement economics. Bankers don't care about net worth, bankers care about cash flow. And my cash flow, the money I had to spend each month, had taken a hit, a big hit. Funny how quickly things change. At the end of May, I had stood at the top of Atalaya Mountain overlooking Santa Fe in northern New Mexico's beautiful Rio Grande Valley. There, I felt like the luckiest guy on the planet, surrounded by students and colleagues with whom I had experienced some of my happiest time. The climb was to be a capstone, a fitting conclusion to life as a college professor and the beginning of a happy retirement. Well, it wasn't just the elevation in Texas that was lower now. My feelings, my hopes were on the floor with me. You're no good, you're no good. Well, my loving, normally compassionate wife found just the words I needed. They went something like this. You're not doing this. Get up and figure it out. That's pretty well what she said, wasn't it? Well, I did figure it out. I did what writing teachers, I guess what you would expect they do. I started writing. Actually, first I researched, and then I wrote. And then I researched some more, and wrote some more, and researched some more. I thought it would take about 2 to 3 months. It took nearly 3 years. But I finally found some things that made a difference. And I suppose the biggest thing was understanding that the retirement crisis in my own life and the retirement crisis in America today is not so much a crisis of money as it is a crisis of hope. And hope comes from dreams, and I had lost mine. I've forgotten it. And so I want to read you a little passage that deals with that. This is from a chapter called It Takes a Dream. Let me find it here. Okay. I want you to imagine that you are financially secure, that you have enough money to satisfy all your needs now and in the future. The question is, how would you live your life? George Kinder's question led not only to a clear vision of my dreams, but the realization that there are two competing views of retirement. The first I'll call the traditional approach teaches that it's all about money. You sit down with your financial planner who wants to know how much you have and where it is. And he or she then uses the 80% rule to see how you will need to realign things to achieve the standard of living to which you're accustomed. The 80% rule, it'll take 80% of what you made pre-retirement to be able to live like you want to. Some say it'll take a lot more than that, but 80%. A perceptive agent, I write, might ask about your want-tos, just in case there is some surplus, but there's a better chance you'll have a shortfall, in which case you'll need to scale back your expenses. Can you say downsize? But the question hints at a competing, somewhat recent view I call the dreams first approach. So moving on down the page, George Kinder wrote a book called Life Planning for You, How to Design and Deliver the Life of Your Dreams. He's a financial planner who calls himself a life planner. And now I'm reading. Kinder believed that retirement planning begins with one's dreams. He called it lighting the torch. Before he would ask about money saved for retirement, he wanted to know about his clients' passions and values, what he called their sacred purposes or their call to greatness. So on their first visit to his office, Kinder had people, present and future retirees, answer 3 questions. Paraphrased briefly, they were, 1, if you had all the money you wanted, hey y'all come in. And got seats back there and there. Hey Ross.
That's great.
These are family, y'all, they're here. Okay, what? If you had all the money you wanted, how would you live your life? What would you do and be? If you had only 5 to 10 years to live and your finances were the same as now, would you change anything? And then third, if your life ended today, what would you wish you had done or become? And then I say Kinder's questions helped me see why I was so frustrated and anxious. I was so focused on money worries, I had lost my sense of sacred purpose. Put simply, I couldn't see the dream for the money. But Kinder's approach was about more than mental tranquility, I write. It wasn't only that thinking about dreams made one feel better. Kinder said it was about vision, and vision lights the torch. It gives us that fountain of energy we'll need to get off the apartment floor. What about bankers and budgets and such? With a torch so bright, wrote Kinder, nothing can stand in the way. Well, on a side note, the immediate effect of reading Kinder brought me back to the financial planning I had done before hearing from the banker. I discovered nothing had changed. Yeah, the numbers still worked. I could build a house and pay bills and enjoy some non-essentials. It seems that panic clouds things while dreams can bring them back into focus. Or put more succinctly, in the traditional view of retirement, money, budget, determines one's dream. In the more recent view, dreams determine budget. When I started with the dream, I found the resources, including the money, to support it. Okay, I want to read one more thing before I quit this evening on that dream. So when I tell people about this part, it resonates with them. But a lot of times they say, well, okay, I have a bucket list, but I'm not sure where my dreams are. Where do dreams come from? So I want to share with you just a little of that. But before I do that, I want to share several of my blogs. I decided that I was going to blog every day during the first year of retirement. And I was going to write a book, but it wasn't this book. I was going to write a book, something like, blogging through retirement. Well, I made it for 80 days about. And then, I don't know, there's just too much going in. I was still too depressed about things, and so I quit. But I decided when I started writing this book that some of these blogs would fit nicely. They kind of break things up a little bit. So I want to read some of them to you. This first one is called 50 Years of Stuff. 50 Years of Stuff. It's a Cloud High School letter jacket worn by my wife in 1966 when the Lady Mustangs were by-district champs. And it's the reason we're arguing. She wants to throw it away. I don't need it, and our kids won't want it, she says. But it's history, I say. One day a little girl will look at it and know her great-great-grandmother was good at basketball. I wasn't that good, she says. And we don't have room in the new house. Okay, says I. So what about these? I'm holding a pair of knickers I wore on the slopes of Red River in 1967. You haven't fit in those since we married, she says. But it's history. One day a little boy will know his great-great-grandfather. And so it goes, as my minimalist wife and her pack-rat husband sort through nearly 50 years of stuff. This is going to take a while. Well, one of the things in studying retirement that's in most retirement books is like marriage and retirement. And especially it has to do with space. You're suddenly going to be around each other a lot more. So how's that going to work? And for a lot of people, not so well. And so I decided to write a blog about it. And it's also in another chapter too. This is called Retired Husband Syndrome. Retired Husband Syndrome. The term was coined in 1985 by Dr. Charles Clifford, who, writing in the Western Journal of Medicine, described wives of the newly retired who said things like, "I'm going nuts, and he's under my feet all the time." Clifford said these women reported headaches, depression, agitation, palpitations, and lack of sleep. Evidently, the condition is prevalent in Japan, too, where they have their own name for it. I'll try it. Shechujan Zakuta Zatuso, which loosely translates one's husband being at home stress syndrome. There's even a book about it. Miriam Goodman wrote Too Much Togetherness in 2011. So I decided to address the topic head on. Honey, I asked her, do you have retired husband syndrome? What? Am I under your feet all the time? Of course not. Now run along and make sure you get everything on that list. Don't forget the mail. I'll be at my sister's. She really said that. Okay, this one's a little more syrupy, but I still want to say it. This is called a charmed life. Charmed life. Movers will be here today to take our furniture to a storage unit where we'll sit until the new place is ready. So tonight, Shar and I will sleep on a mattress in the living room of an empty house. We've done this before. If you see a trend here, it seems we seniors have always done something before. In the fall of 1968, we spent our first night together in similar circumstances in a rent house on North 28th Street. Now the spot is a parking lot for the WTAMU Activity Center. I wish I could go back in time and visit with the young man in that house. He couldn't believe a gal so beautiful had said, "I will," and "I do." I'd tell him that the beauty ran deep and had staying power, and that he was as lucky as he imagined himself. And I'd say what I will say to myself tonight, that I'm living a charmed life with this lady, and I don't want to waste a moment of it. Okay, that'll save me from that other one. You gotta kind of balance these. Yeah. Okay, now you're gonna relate to this, some of you. One of the people that I quote in this book calls it tip of the tongue memory. You got that word right on the tip of your tongue, but you have no idea what it is. Okay? This is called the Dumaflachi in the drawer. While it is true that young people have sharper vision, better hearing, quicker reaction times, and better short-term memory than seniors, Dr. Rowell says we can compensate for all of these. The lead doctor in the MacArthur Foundation study on aging goes on to say we can do things to promote strong mental function. Things like regular physical activity, a strong social support system, and belief in one's ability to handle what life has to offer. Rowell calls this self-efficacy. Helps seniors maintain sharp mental ability, his words. That's encouraging, because I get the short-term memory thing. Why is it I can remember phone numbers of childhood friends from the 50s? Swatzel is 3075, Scott is 3010, and Susan is 4444, but not the name of the Dumaflachi I want Charlotte to bring me. Me. You know, the Dumaflachi. It's in the drawer next to the hammer. She. You want what? Me. The Dumaflachi. It tightens things. She. Do you mean pliers? Me. Yeah, that's it. Bring me the Dumaflachi. And then I said, maybe I need to work on self-efficacy. Oh, brother. All right, I got one more about dreams that I want to do. Let me see if I can find this one. The problem with golf. You're supposed to play golf when you're retired, and, well, I'll let the words just say this themselves. Okay. The problem with golf. In my first golf lesson in 50 years, I hit 4 beauties. They went straight, high, and long, and made Casey the golf pro smile. He was working wonders with this old man. The problem is I had a total of 50 balls. 12 of them, triple the number of beauties, dribbled a few feet off the tee. One hit a goose. No, that's not a golfing term, a real goose. And therein lies the problem with golf, and the reason I've tried to avoid it for most of my adult life. If one manages to write a beautiful sentence, chances are another one is close behind and more will follow. At least few will look like a first grader wrote them. Not so with golf. So what went wrong with that one? I said to Casey, the golf pro. Your backswing was too close to your body. And that one? Your back foot didn't pivot. What about that one? You raised up. Keep your head down. And so the conversation went. There are over 40 ways, seriously, I counted, one can mess up with a golf swing. And that, friends, is the problem with golf. Okay. Let me get back to that dream thing. So I said, okay, so the answer to living in retirement, I guess, is probably the answer to living at any stage in your life, and that's that you need a dream and you need hope. And so how do you find that dream if you're not sure what it is? Let me get the right page here. So this is called Who Am I? This chapter. Who am I? Who are you? Well, I'll tell you who we are not. We are not our former job titles. We are not our bank balances. We are not our stage in life, whether you're an adolescent or a retiree. These lies need to be unmasked, for sometimes we must know who we are not before we can know who we are. That's a quote from a guy named Os Guinness. And we must know who we are because identity precedes dreams. You dream what you dream because you are who you are. Discover your identity and you'll discover your dream. So how do you discover your identity? The question should be, where do you discover your identity? And the answer is in your past. Alexandre de Tocqueville, the French writer that surveyed American life in the 1800s, Alexandre de Tocqueville said, the entire man is to be seen in the cradle of a child. Poet William Wordsworth put it like this, the child is father of the man. According to sociologist Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot, almost every one of the women and men I interviewed found it necessary to begin their stories of third chapter learning with flashbacks to their childhood. Third chapter is what Lightfoot called the traditional retirement years. And like many other writers on the subject, she said our past holds the key to our future. And so I advocated to my readers, let me see that they write a memoir, a short memoir, divide their life into 7-year segments and ask questions. I interviewed the 6-year-old me. He just wanted to talk about his paint mayor named Sue. But we did talk some, and then I interviewed the 12-year-old me and then the 20-year-old and so forth. And then after you do that, you go back and you look at the things that tend to crop up in every era. And that's who you are. And so then if you know who you are, then you can figure out what your dreams are. I found out, for instance, that I was a creator, maker, builder, whatever you call it, whether it's organizations or books or whatever. I like to make things. So what are my dreams? Well, what do I want to make? What do I want to create? Those are your dreams. Os Guinness, I quote in here several times, calls this calling. That's the Christian concept for it. And I say in here that it's not that hard to find your calling. In fact, I'm convinced that if you don't find your calling will find you. So let me read this paragraph. Similarly, we don't find our callings, they find us. Remember the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale? The ugly duckling wasn't good at being a duck because he wasn't one. He just ended up in the wrong nest where others told him he was a duck, and an ugly one to boot. How did he discover he was really a swan? His calling found him. He saw beautiful swans flying overhead, and something stirred in his spirit. Swimming towards swans, his true identity, he looked in the water and discovered in the reflection that he was one. That's why the experts have us study our histories. We're looking for identities, true reflections of ourselves. And we're noting those stirrings in our spirit, feelings that overwhelmed us when what? That's the question you ask. What was I doing when I felt that feeling? The answer to that question, I write, is the answer to the first one. Who am I? All right, and let me just end, and then if you have questions, we can talk about them, with one of my last blogs called Joy Sustained Us. I have a chapter in here, I think it's a blog post that says, never build a new house in your first year of retirement. Everyone tells you not to. But my next blog, the next day, well, I ended that blog saying, unless, of course. And then this is the blog after that. It's called Joy Sustained Us. It's the best decision I've ever made. Building a home on this little tributary canyon of the Palo Duro. Because building a house, like going back to school or starting an encore career, is a vote for the future. Everything you do, from the foundation work to framing to trim carpentry, anticipates a better tomorrow. So building has been a hopeful metaphor. What first seemed impossible became possible, then doable, probable, and finally done. It has given hope for other retirement goals. But while hope is a strong thing, it's not what sustained us this year. The word is joy. Hand clapping, jumping up and down, joy. Sounds childish, huh? It's felt childish. Since late August, when we secretly slipped into our almost finished home, we felt like children on Christmas morning. There were new presents to unwrap every day. Visiting with friends on the front porch, chasing grandkids down steep hills, a different room area to enjoy. You gotta see this fireplace. Some of you have. And all the opportunities to create. We've only begun landscaping. I'm still going to build that mountain stream in the backyard. Let's be honest, Dave Ramsey would not be happy with me. Building a new home at this time in our life was not the wisest business decision I've made. But I know this, my greatest stress has become my greatest joy. And in Ramsey's words, that's better than I deserve. Well, any questions, anything there? I'm kind of curious too. Some of you have read this. Are there parts that stood out, things that y'all like that maybe I didn't touch on?
I just found it fascinating the way you wrote it, Mike. Doing those blogs.
Doing the blogs along the way.
When I got that, that wasn't what I was thinking. A book on retirement.
Yeah.
It was.
It's interesting because, I think that's the creative process. I didn't expect blogs to be part of this, but they sure helped me. There's a lot of pretty heavy chapters in here. We talk about legacy, which makes us think about our mortality. We talk about, physical things. There's one in there called unwelcome surprises, when things happen to us that we never expected to happen to do. And you need a little something in between to, and I had fun with that. Poor Charlotte, she ends up in most of my blogs, and it's divine humor, I guess, to put somebody who's very reserved and very, what's the word? She does not want to be in the limelight, and I'm always writing about her.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, to tell you what, stick around as long as you want to. Most of you already bought books, but if I haven't signed yours, I'll be glad to do that. If you need a book, I'll be glad to do that too. Katie's filming this. We're going to put some stuff up online for my thing. If you want to talk with her for a moment, if you've read the thing, or even if you haven't, she can ask you, why are you here today? And you can say, well, isn't this Jason's Deli? But I mean, she'd be glad to have that, and we'll just use it as a short thing. But that's certainly not something you have to do if you're not really comfortable with it. But thanks for coming. I mean, this is Christmas, and we were talking about all the different parties and things competing, and I love sharing my book with one person, and I've gotten to do that like 8 or 10 times over tonight. So that's great. So thank you.
Hey, Rob. Thank you.
There are Christmas cookies around the bin there too, if you serve them in bottles of water.
You're trying to tempt us.
Yeah.